Amnesty International South Africa says the establishment of a commission of inquiry into the explosive allegations made by the KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is an indictment of the country's law enforcement and justice system. The organization is calling for speedy criminal procedures after the completion of the commission. Let's find out a little bit more about their expectations, and the executive director of Amnesty International South Africa is Shenilla Mohamed, who joins us tonight. Shenilla, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. I want to extrapolate from your statement. You say this cannot be just another inquiry that leads to no justice or accountability. Let's start there. Are you saying that based on previous experiences with judicial commissions of inquiry? And if so, remind the viewers of what has occurred in this country when it comes to judicial commissions of inquiry.
Good evening, Kuli, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, I mean, Kuli, what we're saying is that, and you saw it from the reaction of the public, not another commission of inquiry that does not result in action being taken. And viewers will know that we've just come out of years of a Zondo commission that cost millions, if not billions, of rands. That we have yet to see prosecutions. We have yet to see the recommendations being implemented. I'll take you back to Marikana. As far back as Marikana, there were many recommendations that came out of the Farlam Commission, and yet very few, if any of them, were ever implemented. And unfortunately, this has become a trend in South Africa, where we have commission of inquiry after commission of inquiry, and yet very little is then done by the state, whose responsibility it is to implement the recommendations that come out of these inquiries. And really, South Africans get put into this cycle of expectation, and then are consistently let down by the state, by the government, when no action is taken.
The commission will have the power to refer matters for immediate criminal investigations and prosecutions. It's almost as if I'm listening to the Zondo Commission, or indeed the one that you speak of, which again I covered as a working journalist on the ground, the Marikana Commission of Inquiry. What happened to those very explicit recommendations for criminal prosecutions? Have we seen any of that happen?
Well, I think, in Marikana, there were one or two prosecutions that took place, but still we did not see the bulk of the recommendations, taking, being dealt with. We also saw some payments going out to some of the Marikana victims. But again, Koli, it was a horrendous event. There were a lot of recommendations that came out, and similar to the state capture inquiry, the Zondo Commission, we have yet to see prosecutions happening there, and I doubt if we will. I would be very surprised if we start to see things rolling on the Zondo Commission. Now, unfortunately, I think that the challenge we're facing is that, and the president does not, and this is our analysis, that the president has powers that he could use. For example, we saw the DA minister, Deputy Minister, being dismissed a couple of weeks ago. And, we're not seeing the same action here. And I would be surprised if there was not enough evidence already in place for the president to take some decisive action, whether it's on removing the police commissioner, or whether, the police minister, or any of the commissioners, or anything. But unfortunately, the president continues to sidestep accountability and really hands power over to these commissions, but then will not take the steps to implement the recommendation. So actually, there's no, we totally understand why South Africans have no faith in these commissions, because they have not seen the results of these commissions. And really, it all boils down to the lack of political will by the president to actually take some action rather than keep on pushing the matter forward. And I think one other important point I want to make, Holly, is that, South Africa, we need to start seeing politicians that put the rights of the people ahead of their own political survival. We are continuously seeing decisions taken on the basis of the survival of political parties or individuals rather than a state that does the right thing and upholds the rights of the people of South Africa.
Yeah.
We have yet to see that happen.
Just quickly on this point, because I also want to talk about the police for a moment and what this means for the South African Police Service, the fact that the president has seen it fit to mount or establish a commission of inquiry looking into matters within SARS. Before we get there, you say the president has powers to use. There's a view that says the president cannot be judge and executioner. Therefore, he can't investigate this and therefore fire people on the whim. So, do you go along with that view? Could the president have done this any other way?
Well, I think, Khuli, if you go back to General Mkhwanazi's, press conference, and of course, neither you nor I have seen the evidence that General Mkhwanazi is actually says that he has. But I do think that, on the basis of some of that evidence, there were actions that could have been taken. I mean, if I recall, General Mkhwanazi said that there were a couple of dockets, maybe not on the police minister, but a couple of dockets that were already there, ready for prosecution. All the evidence was there. So this is not a situation where we are starting from scratch, trying to find out what happened, how did it happen. We already have evidence in place, according to the whistleblower himself. So, the question then is, why wouldn't the president at least take some action rather than passing on the entire thing to another commission of inquiry? And again, even though he's put down dates, 3 months, 6 months, we saw from Zondo Commission, these things go on and on and on. And, we go from one election to the other and we still don't see justice. And our biggest concern is that once again, this thing will go on and on. But this time, Khuli, there are massive repercussions that affect the lives of everybody. Because if you look at the accusations that have been made, we are being told that our police force is really not independent and is in the hands of criminals. And that has massive repercussions.
I just want to reflect on the police and what this looks like for the South African Police Service, that the president has now been forced to act in this way. There's an organization called New South Institute, NSI for short. They released a report in June of 2023. And part of that report talks about, or it illuminates, the complexities and nuances that exist within the South African police and why it seems difficult for them to do their jobs. They point to the police service being heavily politicized, the police leadership and how they appoint it. That process as well is hugely politicized. But here's a kicker, Shenilla, which perhaps is going to concern South Africans. They say that they noticed that there was spending that went towards bodyguards and VIP services for certain political elites, neglecting the needs of ordinary South Africans, which is what the South African Police Service should be concerned with. Is that, do you go along with that view based on what this organization uncovered at the time that they investigated?
Well, Khuli, and we ourselves as Amnesty International South Africa, we have been working on a lot of cases, where we've seen how the police have not done their jobs in order, for justice for the victims. We're looking at gender-based violence cases. We're looking at political assassinations. We're looking at, the murders of Abashlali activists. Now, what that report is actually pointing to is the fact that not only is there a politicization of, the police force, but there is also massive corruption. And, again, to go back to what General Mkhwanazi said, that, if you look at that 360 billion rand tender, which was meant to be for psychological services for police officers, it hasn't really amounted to anything. So, again, I mean, and of course the tender was given to somebody who really doesn't have the skills. So there are layers and layers, Koli, of horrors within the police service. Now, let me just say that there are some very, really good people within the police services, and they don't deserve this. South Africa is really difficult to police, and especially now that we have all these mafias and the drug cartels. Imagine, and the human trafficking. So we need police officers who not only have the skills, but actually have the right resources, the ability to be able to go out there and combat crime. And yet we are sitting with police officers who are underskilled. We've looked at one of the things, we're about to release a report early next year that is going to be looking at the lack of skills within the police to gather forensic evidence at a crime scene. And, if you look at those basics, what it points to is money is not being used in the right way, whether it's being siphoned out, stolen, or whether it's really being, shifted out for corruption and other people's safety, etc. But at the end of the day, it is the South African public that is suffering. It is the women in this country who are too afraid to go out alone. It is women who are dying on a daily basis. It is political assassinations that are happening. There's drugs out there. So, we are suffering at the end of the day, and this has got to stop. And I think, the disappointment everyone is feeling with the president is why do they not see what we are seeing? Why will they not take the action that is required to bring an end to all of this?
Shenilla Mohamed, thank you very much for your time, Executive Director at Amnesty International South Africa.